Hello everyone, and welcome back to theCUBE's live coverage of KubeCon and CloudNativeCon EU live in Amsterdam. I'm your host, Rebecca Knight, sitting alongside Paul Nashawaty. I'd like to welcome back to the program, Phil Trickovic, SVP at Tintri. Thanks so much for coming on the show again.
Thanks for having me
Great
again.
to see you.
You too.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about this cloud, the hybrid storage system. Before we get really into the details, why don't you start with a broad high level of what the problem is that you're solving for organizations?
Around placement.
Yeah,
So I guess on a business sense, it's the elimination of waste. There's no point in storing data that you're going to access once a year on NVMe. That's foolish. It just doesn't make sense right now. When there's other options available, and you still, what is interesting with AI is you still have sort of the same usage parameters that you would see in VMs, where about 10% of the data is hot, then you got a subset that's warm, and then you've got cold. So back to HSM, kind of, there's those three tiers. What we've seen now with these containerized workloads is that's not entirely true anymore. This could be just as critical as what just happened. Like talking about in training or in maintenance of these apps, particularly with Kubernetes and containers, they generate so much data and you don't know when it's needed yet. So we're still learning with that, but what we've got now still will take a huge cost out of that, because even there you still got half of that data that you can put down to less expensive media. And in some cases, algorithmically, you can kind of eliminate some of it. In some of the way these new apps are being done and training these hard-coded, I'm going to get into a total rat hole here, but they know what I'm talking about. Like the way the apps are now compiled is different too. So we're very aware of how that's done. So that tiering is changed a lot, but it's still very valuable and it's still very valid to what we're doing today. And probably more needed because there's no humans that can manage this amount of data that these are generating.
Yeah,
it's just impossible.
And you're right. I mean, I think the application design and architecture is really dictating how the storage is being used. Yeah. So you have to have a hybrid architecture, right? Yeah. The SSDs and the hard drives themselves have to be kind of used appropriately. Otherwise, like you said, you're putting using a lot of like high value storage for low value applications, and that's not the right way to use it. So, speaking of Tintri's architecture, you have to have that balance between performance and scalability, right? So if you're looking at a BCDR kind of scenario where you have you want to make sure you have continuity, you want to make sure you have the right performance, you want to make sure you have the right things going on. Business continuity matters, right? Disaster recovery matters, but performance and scalability also matter. So can you touch a little bit on that and what that means? I mean, there's a lot there to unpack.
Yeah, well, you actually just said yes, and they're all priority one, depending on who you're talking to. So there's a lot to unpack there, but again, at the end of the day, if we all, I'm being not old guy, but a little curmudgeon-y engineer. At the end of the day, these are ones and zeros, right? And if you're aware of what they're doing, we can solve all of those problems. It's very dependent on what that specific app and specific business requirement is, but if you don't have visibility to what it's doing, how do you address those?
Yeah.
Like almost ask the question back to everybody else in the community. Like that's how we do it. We can do it down to tape if you want to put it on tape. What are you doing to address that in your space? You know? And the cloud spends with Amazon and these things. I can't tell you how many meetings I go in where this was supposed to cost us X a month and it ended up being 200, and there's no hyperbole there. 200, 300, 400% what we had planned for, oops. Because you can't just throw these at a pool of disk and think it's going to not go crazy.
Right, but that's where the intelligent data placement really comes into play.
Yes.
Right, when you look at intelligent data placement, that is like, okay, I'm looking at the zeros and ones, right, the blocks and the files and the objects, and we're looking at understanding how it all kind of connects. And like, if you're looking at that and you want to really understand where you place it, your system optimizes that.
Yeah, automatically.
Automatically. So talk a little bit about that, because that's important to understand, because I think with AI workloads, there's this misunderstanding of, I'm going to build an AI application. I need a GPU. I need the highest tier this. No. And the reality is you might be able to get away with a CPU and use hard drives and not have to use NVMe or, so let's talk about that a little bit, because I think intelligent data placement really matters.
It's paramount now. And excellent point, Paul, because the last, I've been in storage and compute for a long time, and the last, I'd say even 5 years, compute and storage was, it's not necessary. Yeah, whatever, we don't need to pay attention to it, because it was so cheap. well, okay, now we've consumed all that's available and now it's not cheap. Right. And now we really need to go oops and go back and look at how do we get this under control. With us, with Tintri in particular, being that we're aware how it works, you let it run for a few days or a few weeks and we'll show you the profile of what you need to do whatever you want to do with it. Shrink it, grow it, expand it, and where to place it, and then we'll automatically place it there for you. Being that we're aware, if that becomes hotter, that workload becomes warmer, we'll move it back up before you've even requested it.
And
that's our engine behind everything else.
Do you do that with predictive analysis of the hotspots on the drives? Is that how you do that?
Yeah, it is. We gather all the stats, all the run stats, like what's the thing I could compare it to? It's almost like if you're a Unix guy, you take all your all your P stats, all your CPU stats.
Yeah.
We're constantly monitoring those and then adjusting how those are able to respond to this particular thread. If you want to go down to what it is, those are tied to threads. We know how to adjust the resources across the stack on those based on their usage in real time.
Do you think the conversation you were just describing about the leader saying, we wanted to spend this, it actually came in 200x that, you're having these honest conversations about the ROI of what Tintri can do for these organizations. I mean, I imagine it's revelatory for these leaders that you're talking to in terms of what they can spend, I mean, what they can save, and are you, I mean, how have customers responded to what Tintri's putting out there?
Usually disbelief at first, just it's this big story. So it's almost 100% of the time disbelief, and until we show you and you take a unit and do it, put it in your shop for a month, you'll see. Yeah. Like that's the only way that we actually manage to
Proof
move
is in
things.
the pudding.
Yeah, because I can talk this all day, and when you see it, you'll go wow. And we've got a lot of Fortune, whatevers that have put a lot of good reviews about how it actually works online. Yeah, so don't have to listen to me.
But let's also remind the audience here that Tintri is just not a box you put in. It's part of your cloud integration strategy. It's part of your archival strategy. It's part of your compute and your like we were talking about in the last segment. We were talking about the multiple module computing. I think all of that matters, and I think it's almost important to remind the audience that you're continuously evolving and you're not just the box that was traditionally like, here we throw it in the corner and it just says storage.
Yeah, no, excellent point. And that is more business conversation, but that is incredibly challenging right now. Yeah. I also can't use their name, but a very, very large company where we partner with Platform 9. It's our second or third largest, and I think theirs largest. You're co-developing with customers at this point with some of these things, and nobody's done it yet. So, but we've seen some really cool stuff happen, and we've made some really, really valuable things happen over the last 18 months, particularly in this environment that we now can expand and say, this absolutely is vetted in the biggest environment in the world, and it's saving them X, and it's a very big X.
So the cost savings, which we're talking a lot about for good reason, but what about the Tintri approach and how it really takes things off the plate of development teams, and what are some other ways that you can describe how it shows up day to day for the workers of these organizations too?
Prior to Tintri, with any competitor, you typically frame it this way. $200 million company, average American enterprise or German or whatever. Usually would have 4 or 5 people just dedicated to storage operations. So with that, no longer needed. All those LUN management, RAID management, this, that, the other thing that we had to do for 20 years, that's what we removed because our intelligence does that for you. They can still dig in and mess with it if they want, but why? Let it run. It will do a better job than any human can. That lets them go focus on doing higher value things than moving LUNs around, or realigning LUNs, or whatever the situation is on legacy type devices. We've solved this 14 years ago.
Yeah, so I want to double click down on something you talked about because I think this is important. I think the cost savings is definitely incredibly important, but I also think I want to double click down on the Platform 9 talk. Okay. Right, the automation and the VM aware intelligence, that's really a big part. The automation, the analytics, when looking at it, and you have VM level control, right? that's a big deal. And like when we're talking about the buzz in the market right now and all the, I'll call it the blood in the water, everyone's going after the VMware that's out there. But with all that said, I think that there's customer choice, right? And customers need to be able to do what they're doing. One thing I was very impressed about the solution that you're talking about is that live migration, that movement of the Platform 9, moving to Tintri, moving on top of the box, and you don't have to have too much downtime. Let's talk a little bit about that.
You don't have to have any downtime. We've done this thousands of times now with Platform 9. Those guys are incredibly talented, and I think their founders were the guys who actually made vCenter and ESX. Like they were the guy. Yeah, you worked with them, right? They were the guys, so they know what needs to be done, and they did it over the last. I think they've been in 10 years too on market. So from what I see, and we work with all of them from that dimension for an enterprise of mission or even enterprise criticality. They've got the way to do that with us, and it's push button. So you have your VMware environment, you want to convert a subset of it, push button.
So how do you bridge the gap between your heritage environment and a new environment?
You can run them both in the same frame, make a sandbox if you want on the same frame, test, roll forward, roll back, convert both ways if it doesn't work.
So like dynamically adjusting, that's very
cool, very powerful.
Yeah, so let's talk, the big pushback I hear in the space and is a lot around skill gap and complexity, right? And so that's what I hear, and so like, whenever we talk about, are we going to migrate off of one platform to another? Well, it's going to require my team to grow and my tech stacks to grow, and it's going to cost me a bunch of money. What's the response for that?
So, I can tell you from a guy who's looking for quite a large number of people to hire, they don't exist. We can't find them, like at all. And that's opportunity for people who are maybe concerned that the AI is going to ruin their career. No, it's not. You just get on top of it, learn where you can add value in the stack. Some functions are going to go away, and they should go away, which is what we're talking about. Like, there's bigger things to do.
You're spot on. I mean, I think that there's one thing important note to point here is our research shows that 67% of organizations are hiring generalists over specialists because they can't find the specialists, but they also are hiring generalists and they're pushing back on vendors to reduce the complexity.
Absolutely, and to further that point, it's been interesting from my seat and having started as an engineer. The specialists in particular need to start looking at those general skills because you can solve a lot of the specialists' problems with what exists now in AI. And there's new specialists that are being required and being developed now. Like, development's really gotten a lot more complex than people seem to give credit for in this world. But the ones that are knowing what to do are very rare. Like, incredibly rare. Even some of the smartest people I know haven't put their toe into it
So
yet.
what's your advice now to college students or people just out of school? Where should they focus their energy and job search?
All right, for application kind of career path, get Cursor or one of these and learn how to code in it, but actually produce a product out of it. Don't just go, it can write my C code like I do. Okay, compile it, run it for a month and show it. That's what's not happening, and like the understanding of how to put those pieces together is non-existent. So as college students, in a weird way, you need to go way back. Seriously, go back and look at how the computing evolved from the 50s up to the 80s. Apply it to what's happening now. Those skills and understanding, where's these 8 ones and zeros going to land? Because they're costing me a lot of money now. It's non-existent. And like I was saying, I think hardware with these things for the last several years has been difficult for me because nobody cared. They just got disk drives, who cared? It's really important now that people get under that sub-HAL, I call it, like under the abstraction layer and understand what's happening there. You don't have to be able to do it, but you need to understand that because that's where you're going to get efficiencies from AI to fix this mess that we've buried for the last 30 years in very powerful processors. Like, we've been so lucky that we've got, I don't know what you want to call it, shotguns to kill flies. We've had this since the 90s.
Yeah.
It's not here anymore. We've got to use these better and more efficiently, and that's who's going to win the business battle. Because these things are exponentially expensive. It's not like I screwed up by 5,000 or 5 million. You miss this, you miss by 200%, 300%, 400%. And so we'll see that in a couple years.
I agree with you, Phil. I think that there's a lot there. I will say this, to kind of wrap it up a little bit, but we talked a lot in the last session, a lot of points that we covered off, a lot in this session that we're covering off on. What's next?
Well, I think the x86 entry is going to be interesting, and then we are looking at ways. You want a next crazy one
Yeah,
that's
I do.
doable? I really want to see a COBOL compiler for Kubernetes.
Okay.
And to go after, you know who.
Very cool.
Someone's had a very large monopoly on COBOL apps for a very long time, and there's no reason that needs to be there. And if
All
you can
right.
get that done, it'd be amazing.
So let's talk about that next year. This time next year in Berlin.
This time next year, I'm going to say we may have that.
Okay.
And we're going to have much larger systems at a much better ROI. The capacity size that are coming out this year are gobsmacking. So there's going to be a lot of growth and a lot of interesting applications coming out, and we're right in
Interesting
front
times
of it.
indeed. Well, thank you so much, Phil
Thank you, guys.
Trickovic.
Thank you
I
both.
appreciate you coming on the show.
Okay, thanks.
I'm Rebecca Knight for Paul Nashawaty. Stay tuned for more of theCUBE's live coverage of KubeCon CloudNativeCon EU. You're watching theCUBE, the leader in enterprise tech news and analysis.